For today's art class, we're going to need some paper. I'm just using watercolour paper. You can use maybe even a canvas if you like, or canvas paper. I'm just using this because it's the last piece. I'm also going to use masking tape to tape it down. You don't actually need to do that if you don't want to, but I just like the border that it creates. We're using some acrylic paints, but if you don't have these sorts, you can use any sort. You could probably do this activity with oil paint as well. So I've just got a couple of greens, bronze yellow, and a black and a white. We need the black and the white, especially for to create the light on the water drops. We'll need a mixing palette and, as usual, some water-filled jars. Not totally full, because we don't want to damage the wood part of some of our paintbrushes. Now, the paintbrush that we're going to need today is a shorter paintbrush, and it's quite hard, so it's going to allow me to actually press quite hard on my paper. We also need a thinner brush that we're going to, oops, nearly dropped that one, that we're going to outline with. So I've got a couple here that I'm going to try. I've also got a couple of different shorter brushes. I'm just going to pick the best one. What is the best one for me might be a different best one for you. And the last thing that we need is just some tissue or some paper towel, something like that, that we can just, you know, clean our paintbrush or dry our paintbrush off a bit. So that's all the materials for today. Oh, and a paint palette. I think I said that. Here are some pictures that I just took of some water on my window. I just got the hose out just so we can have a look at the light and the dark in it. So in our picture that I just took of some rain against the window, or some hose water against the window, you saw when the focus was on the actual raindrops that the background was quite fuzzy and not in focus. So that's what we're going to concentrate on for this part of the art class. We're just going to create some colour in behind. Now I'm going to pretend that in behind my window was lovely bushland and lots of lovely green plants. So I'm going to paint a variety of green plants or green colours, and I'm just going to, you know, just blend different colours to make some different greens. You can do blues if you like. You're looking out on the sky. You can create maybe, you know, traffic lights or street lights, or you can have reds coming through. But my choice for today is just to do the leaves, and what I'm going to do is stop, and I'm just going to speed this part up to show you. Okay, so all I'm doing here is just putting a different variety of greens on my paper, and I'm just blending them all into each other. I just want to create interest as the background, because the focus will be on the drops. So we remember we have to make this look like it's kind of blurry, so no sharp edges. Try and get rid of the paintbrush strokes. So just continue creating a whole heap of greens or blues, whichever you're choosing. So what I've done here is pretty much just smudged a whole heap of colours on. What I'm going to do to blend them in a little bit better, I'm just going to put a little bit of water on the end of my paintbrush. That possibly was too much, but I just want to create those blurred edges with all the different kinds of colours that are coming through on that. So not too much water, because I don't want to water the whole thing down. I also want to make sure that it's reaching the edge of my painting or of my piece of paper. So you can see that that's blending them in just a little more. And then after I've done this part, I'm going to get out the hairdryer and dry off the paint. So I just don't want those harsh edges. I just want the really nice soft blending edges. If it means that you have to add a little bit more paint, so be it. This is coming on not too badly. I'll just add a little bit more paint over this side. I'm not quite sure what colour I use, but it doesn't really matter for this part of it. And you can see that I'm really scratching that paintbrush in. And you know what? It's probably a good idea to use an old paintbrush for this part of it. So if you do have an old paintbrush, maybe use that. I don't know what's happened with that white, so I'm just going to paint a little bit over that. So I'm sure you get the idea. We're just blending in those edges. So now I've created this nice array of different shades, different colours of green, different tones of green, and I actually have some lightness in the middle, but that doesn't matter. But what you want to do with the base coat is create some interest and some colour in whichever colour that you choose to paint it. So the next step in this art class is where we're actually going to paint the water droplets. Now this is the first time I've ever done this, so we're doing this for the first time together. Now what I've taken those photos that I've taken of the water on the window that I created, and as well as looking at a series of different pictures of rain on window panes, or water on window panes. Water droplets, first of all, coming down the window, are not perfectly round. Some may be, but not all of them are. So what we're going to start with is a few round ones, and pretty much all you need to do, and that's why we haven't pre-drawn, because we're just going to make this random. What we're going to do is use our very thin brush, and we're going to create a circle. This is a really big job. Create a circle like that with the black, not quite making a circle. And I'm going to get this other brush, just wet it just a little, and I'm just going to bring that down to smooth the inside edges like that. Hopefully you can see this. I might need to zoom in for you in a minute. So just blend the inside edges. I don't want to cover the whole thing, so this is where the paintbrush is the tissue is handy. And then I'm going to paint white down the bottom. I don't want it to be too... And then what I'm going to do with that blending brush, I'll make sure I clean it in between each one. I'm just going to soften the edges there and blend that up so it's kind of clear in the middle. I might just zoom in, see if you can see that a little bit clearer. I might just paint one more showing you how to do that. So the first one that we paint is a black, and I make sure I rinse my paintbrush, and I really want to get it quite dry. It's still going to be damp enough to keep all the bristles together, but I want it reasonably dry. So I'm dipping into my black, and it does have a little bit of green in there, but that's okay, because if you look carefully at drops, you will actually see some colour reflected, so there'll be lots of reflections. So what I'm doing is just showing you this part again a bit closer. So we're painting the round part, and in most of the pictures the black part of the water droplet was at the top. So then I swap brushes, and this is my blending brush, and this one has a little bit of water left on it, not too much though, it's just a little bit damp. So what I'm doing here is just blending the inside of that water droplet and just pulling the paint down. We've talked about pulling paint down before when we used our watercolours, and you can do the same with this. Now I'm just patting out a little bit of that colour in the middle. So then with our thinner paintbrush, or the paintbrush that we're painting our actual acrylic paints with, I'm cleaning that, making sure it's nice and not too much water. So I just want the plain acrylic to be painted on. So then I get my white and I just paint that underneath. So this is the first step of painting these, because these balls of water don't just have that happening. They don't just have the perfect perfect black and whites on them. They've got a variety of colours from the reflections. They kind of work like a mirror. Okay, so I wasn't happy with that, so I'll just clean that up a bit. So then we get the damp one and we blend it up a bit into that one. Now, that one didn't work as perfectly, so I might just clean this bit up a bit. Clean that up and wipe it off. Okay, so that is the first step. Blend that up. Okay, so that I'm pretty happy with that. So then, using this one that we've been painting our paint with, we're just going to add a bit of reflections. So it's good to have the black paint dry. So if you're having trouble where the black paint and the white paint is blending, just make sure that you let the black part dry first. So you can maybe do all the black sections of your water droplets and then you can paint the white parts. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to imagine that there's the reflection coming from this way. So we can just do a little bit of a paint there and a little bit down there, just like that. And that just adds a little bit more dimension to our water droplets. So wherever we do the reflection, we want to make sure that we do this, you know, do pretty much the same reflection everywhere else. Now, if you want to get very adventurous, what you could also do is mix some of the greens and just maybe create some reflection happening inside the droplets of water. Oops, I've just painted over that. But I'm sure you get the idea. So now what I'm going to do, clean the paintbrush off. I'm going to do an elongated one, so make a longer one, because the water droplets aren't all going to be like this. They're going to actually have a bit more shape to them. So I might just, and we do it in a very similar way, so maybe I'll just do one, hopefully you can see that nice and clearly. So I'll just do the same. So this is going to be a longer shape. I'll just accidentally put some green on that, so I'll just clean that off. Okay, so paint the shape that we want to create. And I'll have that petering out, tapering out there, so it'll be white underneath there. Because whenever you look at water running down a window pane, it's never a perfect circle. I mean, occasionally you'll get some sort of circular shape, but usually they're drops running down like that. So we've painted that. We do exactly the same as what we did with the others. We get a dampened paintbrush and blend that in, and that kind of blurs that line and makes that more like its reflection. So down the bottom, do our white. Do the same with our other paintbrush, blur those edges in. Now I've got a little bit over here, so I'll just clean that up with a dry paintbrush. And then we just add, now that's going to still be wet, but we do the same as what we did over here. We just add a little bit of light up there. I'll create one more and then I'm going to leave it with you, and you can just create a whole series of raindrops or water drops, water streaks coming down your window pane scene. So you can pause the video or continue it if you are just watching the whole thing and then giving it a go after you've viewed it. I will come back and I will show you my finished piece. Alright, I'm just going to show you how I'm painting some smaller ones. You can see a lot of these I haven't put the highlights in yet. So, well, I'll do it just here. Alright, so I'm just doing the black on top. Actually, that one was probably too big. And drying off my paintbrush. Just remember each time you do one of these, you need to kind of blend it in so it's just not this big blobby line. So that's blended in. And this one is going to be squashed too. Sorry about that tapping sound. Then I'll get the white and just pop that underneath and do the same, just give that a blend in. I didn't even wet my paintbrush in. And then that kind of stops the need for having to do that, like the highlight thing on each of them. You just want to make sure that that's kind of blended in quite nicely. There it is there. And now I can see that I've gone a bit over here, so I'll just kind of scratch that off. These little smaller ones, I've just put little black dots, little white dots down the bottom. So I've just got to finish some highlights. I have done a huge one. I would recommend that, this is an A4, I would recommend start with half of that, an A, you call that A5 I believe, because this is quite overwhelming. It's quite a large piece and it does take quite a long time to do these, but you know, for my first turn, I'm finding it really enjoyable doing it. It's just sometimes these things take a little bit longer. Well, I've noticed down here I haven't blended that in and I've still got water on my paintbrush. So this is a good lesson actually. You just pat it up and try and kind of scratch that in a bit to create that lightness. And even though it was almost dried, that's still come out not too badly. So, and then what I need to do is just put the highlights. I'm going to do just some little light dots around just to add interest to it. Here is my finished piece. It took quite a while to do those water droplets. We've used black and white to create light and to make something seem realistic. The droplets were fun to make. I've enjoyed this process. I hope you have too. If you have, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'd love to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers by the time the year is up. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments, or you can join my free art class on Facebook, and there you can pop up questions. You can show any artworks that you've created from the videos that I've made. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.